Hi, Michele. Welcome to the Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hey, Julia. Thanks for having me on.
Really excited for you to be here. I think you have some new and interesting stuff that we haven't touched upon yet. And I'm really excited for you to share with the listeners what you've been up to. So before we dive into kind of some specifics about how you got to where you are, share with us a little general sense of what you kind of do. So I know that you're not in the health coaching specific field, but a lot of the information that you share with the world is so important in that realm. And I'd like you to just share a general sense of what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a podcast host, a speaker, and a writer. And the work that I do is all about empowering women around health, around entrepreneurship, spirituality, anything that helps them create a happy and more fulfilled life. It's really at the heart of what I do, what's possible. And so through my podcast, I interview a lot of people in the health space. New York Times bestselling author like James Nestor came on to talk about the importance of breathing. Dr. Cabral's been on, to talk about Ayurvedic medicine. Anything that creates new awareness and an ability to live healthier and happier is really at the heart of what I do.
That's great. And of course, we know that when you're healthy, you're going to make choices that ultimately lead to more happiness, and more happiness leads to you taking chances to do or become something that rings true for you. So it kind of all starts in that health forum to begin with, right?
It's true. No, it's totally true.
And tell us a little bit about how you got started with that. Is that kind of something that you knew you wanted to do, from a young age? Is it something that you grew into? Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
With the podcasting, because I did get certified as the health coach too, or do you mean the podcasting?
Yes. So I would love to hear about what kind of came first. Was it being certified as the health coach? Was it podcasting? Was it the book? What was kind of the beginning point for you?
Okay. So basically, ever since I was little, I'm 50. So some people are going to be like, who is that? But Merv Griffin was a television talk show host. He was sort of one of the first ones. And so I was probably 7 years old looking at this older white guy going, I want to be like him. What I wanted to do was interview and extract information. I've always been very curious. And so I always dreamed about doing that. So put that on hold. At some point, I decided I was going to go to law school. I became a paralegal. And I think like many of us, we go on different journeys and we have new awareness. So at some point I talked to enough lawyers who just weren't happy being attorneys. Mm-hmm. And I switched gears, and at the age of 27, actually became marketing director for the third largest law firm in Boston. And I only had 6 months of marketing experience. So I went on this corporate journey and I loved it and it was amazing. But I started getting called to doing more heart-centered work. And so I got certified as an empowerment coach in New York City. So I've been an empowerment coach for about 17 years now. And I, at some point, went out on my own. And at 36, I got married. And at 38, I launched my first podcast when no one was podcasting. So there was probably about 2,000 podcasts, and it was called The Good Life. And so I kind of reconnected with that passion. So I think that's, what happens. When you have more of a quiet moment in your life, when you're making these transitions, you start really, and I say it's important to just check in with yourself, what's calling your heart? What is that internal whisper? And so I started a podcast, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and I had enough corporate career success and enough success to feel like I wanted to be at home with her and to really make that, her the focus. But at some point she started preschool, and anyone who's a mom and maybe gave up a career in corporate or some other career where they had that sense of fulfillment that wasn't wearing the mom hat or the wife or the sister or the daughter, even if they're not a mom, but a part of you that feels like, wait, where's the part of me that needs to be expressed? I wanted to go back to school in some way. And I was like, I started looking at all the food we were eating. And my husband would take my daughter out to Starbucks and she'd come back with a big scone. And I'm like, should she be eating that much sugar? I just had all these questions. And so I ended up getting certified as a holistic health coach. And I knew even if I didn't use the certification as part of my coaching, I knew that it would benefit my family. And that was enough for me because, and it also lit a part of like a fire within me that had been dormant for a while, where it was a focus on me learning and something solely for me that then I could, use in my life.
Of course. Yeah. It's so interesting that you say, interviewing or, having, because that's a little bit of what law is, whether you're having these conversations where you're pulling something out and you just shift your focus from something that was maybe, stressful and demanding, and you still were able to do something similar, but now it was something that actually fulfilled you inside and felt like it was really passion connected. And so it's so interesting that even two completely separate careers were still somehow still fulfilling your even want that you had as a little girl.
It's true. And, I actually talk about this a lot on the show and even with guests. I see what's called I call it a through line. There are these experiences in our lives that as we're having them, don't connect the dots. But when you get further along in your journey and you look back, you think, oh, if I didn't have that experience, getting the certification as a health coach and meeting this person and having this character trait of being so curious, it wouldn't have led me to doing the work that I'm doing today. You can't see it when you're on the journey, but when you look back, you start connecting all the dots. And I really believe that life is about remembering. I believe that we're born knowing there's these dreams get put in our heart because we have what it takes to fulfill them. And it's like a journey of remembering who we are and allowing that expression of who we are to come forward.
Yes. Yeah. That's such a beautiful way to look back at it. And really it's about honoring who you are and what you deserve in this life to make choices that feel good and that feel like they are truly going to, serve your passion and your happiness and all of that. And I think your point about being a mom, that also becomes, I think, so much more important because now you're somebody else's model, right?
Yeah.
And wanting to show them that living out your passion is important is also part of it.
Totally. Because I do believe our kids model what we do, not what we say.
Of course. Yes. For better or worse.
Yes, exactly.
Yep, that's so true. Were there any kind of obstacles along this, because again, it sounds like you were in a very successful, more corporate career, and then you chose to then become a mom and you stayed home with your daughter, and then you went to a different shift completely. So were there obstacles along the way that, kind of made it challenging for you that could serve as inspiration to our listeners?
Yeah, I think, and maybe women who are listening are going to relate to this, but I think when your identity is tied up in something where you were so successful and you kind of knew who you were in that role, like director of marketing for this law firm, you go to a cocktail party and people would be so interested in what you did. And I remember going with my husband to his company, holiday parties, and people would be like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a mom. And, they just kind of glaze over. It's like, okay, apparently I've not become an interesting person to people anymore, or whatever. And so I think one of the obstacles that you can face is just believing in yourself, going, for me to, take some chances. So after I got certified as a holistic health coach, they were actually offering a program on how to self-publish a book, knowing that being an author is like the best business card you could have. And so I took a chance and I signed up, and you could win a contest where they were picking 10 books out of 200 submissions, and you'd get your tuition back in Marie Forleo's B School. And I remember thinking as I was writing this book, like, what am I doing? But I'd actually always wanted to write a book. So it was another one of these things, these dots where I had to really own that. And I took the chance and I actually won the book writing contest in Marie Forleo's B School. And, but then I wrote this book and I did nothing with it because there was that other voice that was like, okay, I kind of told some of the moms at the school. And it was the biggest challenge for me was coming home to myself and just really taking a stand to say, wait a second, you have these dreams, you're not going to waste any more time. And so we actually made a big life change. We moved from Boston, where I've lived my whole life. And 5 years ago, we moved out to San Diego. So that was one step towards fulfilling life dreams. My husband and I always had dreamt about being out here. And once we got settled, it was about 2 years in, I turned 48 and I'm like, it's now or never. Are you going to do the show? You've always had it in the back of your mind to relaunch. Are you going to do this? And I was like, yes, I know nothing about how to do it anymore because the whole industry had changed. Now there's like 1.5 million podcasts. But I thought, you got to just get started because you're just going to get one more year older and, the time's going to go. And I never want to look back on my life and feel like I didn't live out my full potential. Like, at least I tried. Maybe I'm not going to succeed at everything, but at least I tried. And that's really at the heart of the show too. That's why I bring on all these inspiring people just to say, hey, it doesn't matter. Maybe you just want to start painting again. Like, you don't have to, build an empire. It's just really about becoming more of who you are.
Yes. Yeah. So honestly, so wonderful. I always say that the struggles, the obstacles, it's our test. Are you going to do it? How bad do you want it? Are you going to put yourself, your happiness, your wants, your needs, your potentials first? Are you going to overcome, obstacle X? And are you going to go home and realize that the comment at the cocktail party is not really, has anything to do with who you are? And are you going to pick yourself up and know that you're going to still believe in what you're doing anyways? Those kinds of things where we're constantly tested by the universe, whatever you want to call it, to kind of continue going to our higher calling.
Totally. And, I think the truth is there's going to be obstacles. It's not, have you had them? It's like, when are they going to come and how are you going to ride through them? And so with the mindset of, wanting to fulfill what's in my heart and taking those chances, it's like, I know I'm going to fail and I have failed in many ways. And so it's like, okay, but what's the next step and where have I succeeded? And then leaning back into those successes to just show like, it's really the small things you do every day, those little incremental choices you make that result in these bigger things. And there's a quote by Tony Robbins that I love, that people underestimate what they can accomplish they overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, and they underestimate what you'll accomplish in 10. So, having the long view for your life. Yes. It's not overnight successes. Like, I just interviewed Stacey Madison from Stacey's Chips, who started with a food cart selling sandwiches and then ultimately this health food product, right? The pita chips. Yeah. And, that was 10 years in the making. There were plenty of obstacles, but you have to at least take the chance. You never know what's going to happen. But if you believe in yourself, I really believe that you can fulfill what's in your heart. I truly believe that.
Yes. And I think highlighting it is so important because I think in our culture, the success is always in our front view, right? We always see these successful people, but not everybody highlights all of the things, that they had to overcome to get there, or how long did it take? We just see, oh, that person's successful, or this person has what they have. And there's really no backstory on it. And I think, social media certainly makes it harder to see. So you're doing something wonderful by highlighting that on your show. It's such an inspiration, I'm sure, to so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually just had Kara Golden on, who started Hint Water. So that's a $150 million company now. And she's branching out into other health related products. And she was a mother of 4, with a corporate career that was like, wait, I'm gaining all this weight drinking Diet Coke. What if I started drinking more water? Oh, but water's kind of boring. What if I flavored this water? But I asked her that because that's 15 years later. I'm like, everyone just thinks, you're some unicorn and that it's an overnight success because suddenly everyone hears your name, but they don't know the 15 years of challenges that got you to the point of success or, the success that everyone can see now. So,
of course. Yeah. If you were to kind of sum up what your podcast and book, have in common, or even you could separate them and kind of give us the gist of the podcast and the gist of the book, what would those be? Because I do think that they're great for the listeners to know.
Okay. So when I went to write the book, it was funny because I was becoming certified as a holistic health coach. And I was like, oh, maybe I can write some inspiring book about, adding good, healthy foods in. But again, I checked in with myself and what kept coming up was empowering women. That's always been at the heart of it. So the show, the podcast is called The Good Life Coach. It's really went back to The Good Life, which was the original podcast name. My book is Design a Life You Love, a woman's guide to living a happier and more fulfilled life. And in it, the book is 52 inspirations all around empowering women to love themselves. And the podcast, at the heart of it, is all around women learning to love themselves enough to make time and space for themselves, to allow for what's possible, and to really own their voice, to reclaim their voice, their unique voice in the world. And so that's really at the heart of both the book and the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. If you had to kind of give a take on self-care, I'm just curious because this is a buzz term word that kind of gets thrown around so often. And, I hear people be like, oh, taking a shower, making time to take a shower is my form of health, self-care. And I'm like, oh, shower? No, that's hygiene. Like you need to do a little more than just make time for a shower. You're better than that. So tell me a little bit about what your take is on self-care.
Okay. So I love that you asked this. So before the pandemic, the last talk I gave was self-care. It was on self-care for a group of 6 and 7 figure female entrepreneurs. And so what happens, especially for women, is that we give to everyone else before we give to ourselves. And one of the things that I said is, I want you to think about self-care. I want you to reframe it to a way of sustaining your power. It's that simple shift. Like, how are you feeding yourself? What are you doing for yourself to sustain your power in the world? Because if you are constantly, if you're constantly working from a glass that's half empty, you have a lot less to give than if you have that full cup. So for me, self-care is first and foremost loving yourself. Mm-hmm. And so how does that translate into day to day? It's thinking and paying attention to how you speak to yourself. Again, a lot of times I see women really lacking so much confidence in themselves, and they're so good about seeing what's amazing and beautiful in their friends, but not within. Mm-hmm. It's moving your body. So we talked about in this conference, it was mind, body, spirit, moving your body, tuning into your truth and allowing more time for the things that bring you joy. It's play. You made me laugh with the shower thing. It's not the hygiene, but then it's, what else can you do to look and feel yourself? Like with COVID, a lot of people are like, oh, I, never even shower now. Maybe that's what people are talking about. Yes, get showered, put on a little makeup if that's something that makes you feel good, but do what you can to feel the most like you. I get dressed every day. I do my hair every day, because if I don't, that's not me. That's not how I am. So being true to yourself. So yeah, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
No, that's great. And I love the fact that you say whatever brings like that power to you to kind of stay true to you, because self-care, it can kind of be like this bottomless pit, if not, right?
Yeah.
Where you're just like filling it up and it's, but if you can kind of maintain trueness and realness of to yourself, that's what kind of sustains you longer term.
Totally. And I actually have a list that I was giving out. It was 52 self-care tips. It was just ideas, because everything, I think people think, oh, it's a massage or getting your nails done, but it could just be buying yourself some flowers because they make you happy. It's like those little things that you can do, drinking out of a beautiful tea. My friend just sent me the most gorgeous tea kettle and cup, drinking out of that. That's an act of self-care to me. Because I think of her and the friendship, but also it's just so beautiful. Like, surround yourself with beauty.
Yes. Yes. And it can be so simple. Like you just said, where you're putting yourself first in a way that doesn't have to be overindulgent in this, financial way or timely manner. And it can just be little choices throughout the day that does, put yourself first and make you feel good. And like you said, like yourself.
Exactly. And, the truth is that depending when you grew up, so generationally, there was a commercial back in I think it was the 70s. And there's this woman, she was a career woman and she's a model in the commercial, and wind's blowing through her blonde hair and she's standing there looking all glamorous. And the jingle was, I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and never let you forget you're a man because I'm a woman. And then it's like, I can go home and tuck the kids at home at night. It talked about everybody else. Mm-hmm. Except for this woman. And it was to sell perfume. So this was the ideal of like success, taking care of everyone else. So there was no modeling, often from our own parents, our own moms, So we have to learn this. We have to learn it and teach our kids this.
Yes, I agree. And it really is a generational thing that almost has to be kind of like jumbled up and broken. Yes, because even still with women being able to have high power career jobs and still be a mom and what all the opportunity that we have, we're still somehow expected to do it all just because we've been given the opportunity to do it all.
100%.
And that is sometimes a really tall order and almost even more pressure. To be it all, I think.
Completely. And I mean, I had some women entrepreneurs at that conference that I spoke to who'd be like, I skip every meal and then, feel like I'm going to pass out. One woman who just didn't hydrate and literally did pass out. She had to go to the emergency room because she was so dehydrated, just pushing herself. So it's, sometimes it is the simple things, literally like, have I drank some water today? Did I carve time out to eat? It's those little acts of self-love that do the trick. Yeah.
And sometimes maybe having a sip of water before you get somebody else a sip because maybe they've already they've had 2 cups and you have had none. So therefore I will,
totally.
But we're also programmed to, especially I think with kids to just have this like little guilt voice in the back of our heads of no, not you yet. And all of a sudden you could go through a whole day and you've been putting all of your own needs off. And now it's 6:00 at night and you're like, well, might as well just go to bed.
Totally. Or it could even be like, you'll buy your kid the expensive sneakers and then you're like, oh, I can't buy those cute pair of jeans. They're too much money, but they're the same price as the sneakers. Right. But you're not going to do it because you're, depriving yourself. Love yourself, give to yourself, make yourself a priority.
Yes, because then you're that much better to all the people around you.
100%. That's the whole point. And that was actually a big part of the message. It's like, give to yourself so you can be there for your family and your teams. These are all very powerful women. It's like, you can't be there for your teams if you're not there for yourself first.
Yes. There's a Calvin Hobbes little clip. Do you know what I'm about to say? Yes.
No, I don't know which one, but we read that all the time.
So I might mess it up. I'm going to try to remember it as best I can, but it is, it's Calvin and Hobbes. And he says, I'll take care of me for you if you take care of you for me. And we're always in this thought of like, I love you so much, I'm going to take care of you, whether it's a partner, a friend, a child. But I love the thought of I'm going to take care of me for you because then I'm a better version of myself to show up for you.
Love that.
It's a simple shift, but it's something that honestly, I think has such lasting effects. And then it also cuts down on resentment too, right? Because then we can get in these like patterns of, oh, you have the nice sneakers, the partner is well taken care of, everybody's eaten. And then you get like these kind of like yucky resentments because you've been taking care of everybody and not yourself, but you're the one making the choice at the end of the day too.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to this, because as you say that, I'm thinking one of the things I talk to them about is that even if you don't feel like you have time, even 15 minutes, I mean, you can do a 5-minute meditation, you can journal for 5 minutes, you can go get that glass of water and eat a little something, just little things that you can add to your routine so that even if just that first 15 minutes of the day, you've done something for yourself, it makes you want to do more. But it's so easy to fit in. It doesn't feel like it is, especially, depending on how many kids you have and how old they are. But 15 minutes, I know any woman can find.
Of course. And it's a shift in habit too, right? Once you can get into the habit of even thinking of yourself or finding ways to do little things, it's like any other habit. It's like working out or any habit change. It kind of can grow in how well you're able to do it, how often, you find it to be easy versus hard. So it's, totally builds on itself.
Totally.
All right. So my next question for you is kind of where would you, if someone said like, where are you today? As far as, are you at that point where you feel like this is totally what I'm meant to be doing? Do you have this kind of contentness about what you're sharing with the world?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's so nice to I'm reading books that I would be reading to interview New York Times bestselling authors who I never would have been connecting with. And I'm like, this is my work. Like, this is amazing, or these female entrepreneurs. I love how I built this. And so I feel like my show is sort of like how she built this plus Super Soul. We go deep and it's about empowering you. And so I feel so grateful. I love what I do. And, I'm continually trying to feel into like, where am I meant to go? And there have been hard times with the show. I mean, most podcasts, people don't get beyond episode 10. I don't know if people, yeah. So even though there's like 1.5 million, 50% of those shows don't make it beyond episode 10 because people don't know how much work there is. And there's been times when I prayed, I'm like, okay, God, give me a sign. Am I on the right track? And I will tell you, Julia, this has happened every time I've prayed, every time. One was getting this dream guest, a woman who I've admired for 6 years. Her team reached out to me on the day that I prayed saying, we'd love for so-and-so to come on the show. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Or I'll get a text from somebody who'll say, that show just totally made me feel like possible, or like I was having a hard time and I listened. And I'm like, it's every time I go in, I'm like, God, am I on the right path? Especially because there have been times it's a lot to, create. I'm like, what am I doing here? What's the next step? And I always get these beautiful knowings that it's aligned.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that, is just a testament too, to, again, when you're in touch with all of those things about your wants, your needs, what is happening around you, we oftentimes get the messages we need if we're willing to listen.
Completely. And ask,
yes,
right?
And ask.
And for some people, it might not be prayer, but it could be meditation. For me, it is, it's praying to God and just listening and being open to what I'm going to be told. Or I do a journaling practice. Mm-hmm. When I'm, not sure about something, I'll ask, like, what do I need to know about this? And I get connected to a higher part of myself. It's pretty amazing because I'll go back and I'm like, I would never have written that, but it's so wise and loving. And I know that it's a higher, wiser part of me that's guiding my path.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What would you share with someone who's listening to this and they're like, wow, she's amazing. I want to do that. I've wanted to do this for so long. Like, I just wish I could be like her. What would be like one or maybe two pieces of advice that you would share with someone thinking that, kind of listening to us now?
So the heart of the show, and having done now 125 interviews, time and time again, it's somebody had an idea. They had that inner whisper in their heart. And the only thing that separates them or even me from somebody else is having taken some action. And so I would say it sounds so simple, but just take that first step. You don't have to. I think it can be overwhelming when you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go impact, 100,000 women around the world. And I'm going to, be speaking and teaching courses and doing all these things, or I'm going to become a certified holistic health coach and I'm going to write a New York Times bestseller. It's great to dream, know what's calling in your heart, but just take that first step. Have the courage to take that first step. And the other piece of advice I would say is really focus on gratitude. So I have a journaling practice I do every day. I write down 10 things that I'm grateful for, non-negotiable, morning, night, whenever I fit it in, but I write them down. And then I write down affirmations of the dreams that I have in my heart as if they've already happened. So I keep that to a list of about 5 or 10. And, I write down the dreams. And then in between that, every day, it's what's on my plate. What are the top 3 goals I need to accomplish today? I got the bigger picture goal, but what are the 3 things I need to do today? And so, you can be frustrated, like, I want to do more, but it's just get started because you really don't know where it's going to take you. And then what's so fun about it is as you take the steps, all these interesting opportunities and interesting things start coming. But be patient because it's not going to happen in the first week or the first month or even the first year. It might be 2 years in. So you have to have that perseverance to really just stick with it. Trust yourself and that whisper and that knowing that knows that this dream has been planted in you for a reason, and just do it. Just do it. I believe in you. I really do.
Yes. And we only have today. Like, we actually literally only have this moment.
Yes.
And sure, we, hope we're here tomorrow and the next year and, for a long time. But yes, the only thing that's actually guaranteed is this very moment in time. And we can take it or we can leave it. And and all anybody has is this very moment in time, right? The people that are already successful and own, billion-dollar companies or doing what they love, and the people that haven't even started yet. We all only have this one moment. And so kind of doing with it what would actually lead you to that end goal is really the only way to go.
Completely. And also just to be loving of yourself. Like this isn't to look and go, oh gosh, I wish I had. Why didn't I start sooner? None of that matters. You are where you are today. Love yourself. Know that we've arrived since we were born. We are lovable and, worthy of love from the day we arrive here. And that never changes throughout our whole life. But ask yourself, would I regret not having done something? If there's something that's calling you, allow that childlike curiosity and follow it and have fun with it. Make it a game, make it playful. Be like, okay, what would happen if I launched a podcast? What would happen if I, became a holistic health coach? What would happen if I started that business? What would happen if I reached out to one friend and asked to coach them? What would happen? And just have some fun, have some curiosity and see and check in. Did I enjoy that? Did I get fired up from that? And all of that becomes information to take you to the next step because you're not going to know the path before you start. None of us do.
Yes. Yep. And the gratitude too, I think which was the other point that you made. I mean, if there is one thing that I know changes, it's gratitude. I mean, to want more without truly being grateful for what you currently have is just an energetic roadblock, in my opinion. And it truly, when you are grateful for where you're at, regardless of whether it's where you want to be. Yeah. I always say, like, imagine the people that are praying to be in your position at this point.
Exactly.
And there's ways that you can look at what you have, even if it's not where you want to be. That's a way of gratitude. And that just allows you to get further.
Totally. And as you're talking, Julie, I'm just thinking, my guess, I don't know everyone who's listening to the show, but if I had to guess, these are people who want to be in service of others. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you are focused on service, that is kind of the heart. Like, don't start a show to be the next Joe Rogan. Start a show because you want to help and empower people. Don't get certified as a holistic health coach, just to have the certification. Do it because you want to help yourself or the people that you love. We want to be in service. And so, knowing that it's okay to want more. And if that is your goal, to help others, you will find your way. You will for sure find your way.
Of course. Yes. And it's interesting. I grew up wanting to be a hairdresser. My aunt owned a hair salon. I wanted to be a hairdresser more than anything. And looking back, kind of, what you said, remembering, it was just because I wanted to make people feel good. I loved what happened when I went to her hair salon. Everybody was happy. Everybody left feeling good. And I thought, I could do this. I love making people happy. I love having conversation. I love making people feel good. And my mom said, sure, you can be a hairdresser. Why don't you go to college and then you can own the salon and you can even make more people feel good. And so I went to school and I didn't end up becoming a hairdresser, but seeing where I am now and like, oh, obviously this is always what I've felt like I wanted to do at the core. Yes. It just didn't manifest in the same way. I'm not doing people's hair. I'm helping them with health and wellness, but it's all the same, right? I just want to help. And I always say, if I'm having a bad morning, nothing fixes it like going to work and being of service to others. And that always brings me up because it's a beautiful way to kind of like get inside and not necessarily heal, but in a way, I don't know. It always helps turn my day around.
I love that story. Well, you have great hair.
Oh, thank you. And I don't think that was why I wanted to be a hairdresser so bad. But I was just like, this place is awesome. There's music. Everybody feels happy. And it was just an environment that I knew I wanted to be doing. But what this is too, we don't have music, but we're both having a great conversation that makes us, feel really good and passionate and empowered.
Totally. And it's kind of like that through line I was talking about. You had a desire to make people feel good. And so you found that way. And so you might have the idea, like, I wanted to go to law school. Why? Because I wanted to help people. Right. And so I'm doing it, but I've always had in my heart to empower women And kids too. I've always been involved in charities that deal with helping children. So, all those parts of our personality that are just there, that we know what lights us up, all of those are part of the puzzle,
Yes.
to bring us to creating more fulfillment for ourselves and being in service of others.
Of course. Yes. All right. So if our listeners want to find you, so I know you told us the title of your book, but you can hold it up one more time and tell us again, give us the name of your podcast, Instagram handle, kind of all the ways that somebody could learn more about what you're doing or hear more.
Sure. Well, the first place I'd say is the website, thegoodlifecoach.com. And that's where you can get access to so much free content. So like I mentioned, there's about 125 interviews up there, New York Times bestselling authors. And, it covers entrepreneurship and spirituality and health and relationships. We cover anything that helps empower women to live a fulfilling life. And actually, while they're there right now, I'm giving the book away. I've been giving it away. So people can actually join the community and get a free copy of my book on the site. And so the only other place I'd say, I'm only really on Instagram right now. And that's Michele with one L _Lamoureux, which is like love, Lamour, LAMOUR, and then EUX. And feel free to say hello either through the website or through Instagram.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the Health Coaching Success Podcast. This was such a great interview for me. I learned a lot, and you have a way of kind of just lighting a little fire inside. So it's not a wonder why you're kind of so successful at what you're doing.
Thanks, Julia. This has been such a pleasure. And I love the work you're doing in the world. So thank you for making people happy in your special way. You're doing such a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And we'll be in touch. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.